Hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Janice R. Love, also known as the First Lady Coach, and welcome to session 4 of my Pearl Power series. And today we are talking about from annoyed to overjoyed. Here we are in our Pearl Power series and how to manage your emotions the healthy way, which is God's way. And tonight we are going to be talking about from annoyed to overjoyed. Now, when we think about annoyed, you probably have your own thoughts about maybe people that annoy you or things that annoy you. But when we define annoyed, annoyed is simply being a little angry, irritated, and showing angry irritation. Once again, being a little angry, maybe not full blown angry, but irritated, showing angry irritation. So that is the definition of annoyed. But now let's define overjoyed. Overjoyed is being extremely happy, ecstatic, thrilled, delighted. Now think about it in your own life. Which would you prefer to be? Would you prefer to be annoyed or overjoyed? So when we are annoyed, what does that feel like? It means we're aggravated some kind of way. You ever been aggravated? Can you second that emotion? Irritated, bothered, just simply gets on your nerves. You were maybe nervous and unable to relax because something was annoying you. Again, maybe you were a little angry. Maybe you felt tense when you get annoyed. That it's like if they say one more word, I'm going to scream, right? Or irritated, or even sometimes humiliated. So I don't have to tell you about it, right? Because there has been some times where maybe somebody has irritated you. When someone does irritate you or annoy you, what do you want to do? Do you want to yell at them, tell them to just be quiet, or do you want to respond? Do you want to draw attention to whatever they did to annoy you? Is that what you want to do? Do you want to blame them for your reaction, especially if we react negatively? Do you find yourself wanting to blame that person for annoying you? Or do you do a tit for tat? I know that sometimes if I get annoyed enough, I'll do something to irritate that person just to kind of do a tit for tat. Don't judge me, okay? All right. Or sometimes we simply try to ignore people when they annoy us. Or when the last time that you were annoyed, did you blow up? Okay. What kind of response do you typically have when you annoy someone? Feel free to put it in the comments. And again, if you can second that emotion, please let me know. Can you second the emotion of being annoyed? Can you second that emotion? All right. So who annoys you? Think about who annoys you. You probably can name the person right away, or it could be something. For instance, red lights bother me, right? So at night, if something's flashing, I have to either put a piece of tape over it, a towel over it, or something, because lights at night annoy me. Okay, they frustrate me and they annoy me. But it could be it's usually a person that annoys you. Is it your spouse? That that happens because sometimes when my husband being silly, it might be annoying, right? And sometimes I might even get a little angry, but that doesn't happen often. Our children, they can annoy us. People you work with can annoy you. Can you second that emotion? Or even church members. Church members will do things to annoy us. Yes, they will. Even people on television. There are certain times when we turn off the television because somebody annoys us, whether they are on YouTube, social media, or again on television. And again, whenever someone annoys us, we typically try to avoid them, right? Or hopefully, get away from them. Okay. But sometimes we can't, and we end up being annoyed by that person or that thing. Okay. Can you second that emotion of feeling annoyed? All right. Other times when we might feel annoyed is when we felt like others are taking advantage of us some kind of way, or they're not respecting our feelings. You ever been there where somebody's not respecting your feelings and you get annoyed with them? Meaning, again, slightly angry. Or others have kept you from meeting your goals. And this may happen on your job or even at church or again in your personal life. If someone annoys you, it might be because, again, they are keeping you from reaching your goals. Can you second the feeling of being annoyed? Now, I know something happened, you all, during the pandemic. I don't know what it was, but my patience got just a little bit thinner, and I got annoyed with all kinds of stuff. Think about it, like when you were on a Zoom meeting, right? And somebody came in all noisy, making all kinds of noise, and we had to say, mute your microphone, mute yourself. That annoyed me, y'all. I don't know about you all. Did anybody else get annoyed when that happened? Anyway, I'm going to tell you about someone in the Bible who was simply annoyed. Martha. Let's talk a little bit about Martha. And we're going to talk today again about how Martha went from annoyed to overjoyed. Everybody remembers Martha of Bethany, right? Um, when you think about Martha, what do you think of first? Do you think about her hospitality? What is it that you think about with Martha? Do you think about the fact that her brother died and that he was raised from the dead? Do you think about that, how Jesus raised him? Or do you think about the fact that she and her sister were friends of Jesus? What do you think about most when you think about Martha? For me, what I tend to think about is the fact that she had the most wonderful hospitality and that she was known for that. Okay. In fact, I have a sister who's got that kind of Martha spirit, right? Who she can cook, she can sew, she can do all kinds of things. In fact, she shamed me out at Christmas because she was making all these things, right? But most often we think of her hospitality. Would you agree with that? That we often think of her hospitality. Now, again, when we think about her gift of hospitality, we can't help but think about the time that she got annoyed. Remember when Martha got annoyed? Here's her circumstance. She trying to prepare dinner for Jesus and 12 disciples, right? And all were invited to Martha's, and she invited them. So we know that once they make sure everything was perfect, again, think about it. Jesus came to perfect, right? So she busy, she got overwhelmed, and soon she like, I need some help. So her first situation or her first circumstance was the fact that she was trying to go for perfection and making sure everything was great, but she got overwhelmed. And she allowed being overwhelmed to turn into an irritation. She got annoyed. And who was she annoyed at? Her sister, because as far as she was concerned, her sister should have already volunteered to help, right? Or at least ask her, sis, do you need some help? You ever been there where you felt like you were given the short end of the stick, or that somebody wasn't helping you? That's exactly where Martha was. Can you second that emotion? She was annoyed. She allowed her worry to turn into an irritation. So, secondly, she asked Jesus, she got so irritated, so annoyed by her sister not helping her out. She asked Jesus to be the bad cop. Okay. And she asked Jesus to tell my sister to come in here and help me. Okay. You all know the story. Okay. I'm not going to elaborate, but just imagine the emotion going on that she is annoyed with her sister. Again, so much so that she asked Jesus to help her. Jesus, can you tell my sister to help me? I got all kinds of things going on in here. Can't she see that I'm doing this? But no, she's over there sitting with you, right? But again, she, in her mind, because women didn't typically sit at the feet of Jesus or sit around, right, lounging and talking. They were usually the ones in the kitchen. So she felt every right to ask Jesus to tell her sister to do that because, again, Maybe in another circumstance, they would have said, yeah, you get in there and help your sister. All right, y'all with me? So the other thing was that Jesus calls her a worry wart, like a worry wart, and that her priorities were all wrong, and confirms Mary's choice, confirms her sister's choice. Now, again, imagine the emotion that's going on here. She's already annoyed, and then Jesus is gonna call me out, right, and say, "You worried about a whole lot of stuff, but your sister has done the best thing." Now, imagine, y'all. Maybe she couldn't say nothing back to Jesus, right? But I guarantee you, when Jesus left, her and her sister had some words. She was annoyed. Can anybody else identify with that? All right. So again, here we are with Mary, and she is simply annoyed, y'all. She is a little angry. She might have been a little more angry. She's irritated. She's showing angry irritation. Can't you hear her in there slamming pots and pans around because she's irritated? So the question is, how did Martha go from annoyed to overjoyed? You know, I want to tell you about that, right? How did Martha go from annoyed to overjoyed? And at the same time, can you second that emotion of being annoyed? So let's talk about how she went from annoyed to overjoyed. Now, there's a real star in this story. You got Mary and Martha, but there's a real star in this story. And the star of the show happens to be Jesus. Jesus is the reason that Martha moved from annoyed to overjoyed. And let me tell you what Jesus did for her to help her to move from being annoyed and irritated to being overjoyed. All right. So, again, remember, Jesus is the star of this show. All right. So, the very first thing that Jesus did in order to help Martha move from annoyed to overjoyed is that Jesus acted as a true friend. Now, let me tell you how Jesus acted as a true friend. Number one, he didn't try to change who she was, right? He didn't get on her about trying to have a perfect event. He didn't get on her about that. He simply connected with her, called her out, and said, "Hey, you worried about a whole lot of stuff." And isn't that what true friends do for us? They call us out when we are wrong. But he did it in a gentle way. He didn't again fuss at her. He just said, "Mary, you're worried about uh-oh, what's going on there?" Okay. Also, he validated her gift of hospitality because again, he validated her gift by showing up. Okay, so Jesus is acting as a true friend. He accepted the invitation to come to as a friend by being there. And the thing is, he could shut her down right away. Jesus, first of all, acted as a true friend, and that started step number one to move her from annoyed to overjoyed. All right. So, secondly, what Jesus did is he gave her permission to spend time with him. Now, what he did for Mary, remember when he said, Martha, you're worried about a lot of stuff. Mary has chosen what is best. Again, remember in those days and times, women couldn't just sit at the feet of Jesus. They were supposed to be in the kitchen doing the work. But by saying that to Martha about her sister Mary, that gave Martha the permission to to also spend time with him. And that y'all saw how calm Mary was sitting there, like, I ain't got to worry about nothing. I'm here at the master, right? So again, Jesus gave her permission to spend time with him as well. And again, when we're spending time with Jesus, we're not worried about all the stuff that's going on around us. So again, this is one of the ways, this is the second way that he moved her from annoyed to overjoyed. And then finally, Jesus turned her testiness into a testimony of faith. Now we know Act 1 was him, Jesus being at Martha's house. All right. But we know that later on, Act two is when Jesus has has he's late, basically, in Martha's opinion. He's late to showing up to help them out, right? We know Lazarus got sick, right? And they sent for Jesus, but he waited 4 days before he showed up. By that time, Lazarus was dead in the grave. Martha had already anointed his body and they had buried him, and it was over. So when we look at again, what Jesus did is that he turned her testiness into a testimony. Is That's why they had Act Two. Okay, Act Two, when Lazarus had died. When Lazarus had died, as soon as they found out Jesus was on his way, Martha is the one that ran out there to speak to him about the fact that if he had been there, her brother would not have died. But what happens in that moment is Jesus and her get into a conversation, and he truly asked her about whether or not she has faith. And she says, yes, I know that, first of all, that he will rise in the last day and that we'll see him again. And also, I know that you have the power, that you are the Lord, you are the Christ that they sent. So look how her testiness turned into a testimony. And again, even if she approached him with a little testiness in her voice by saying, if you'd have been here, he wouldn't have died in the first place, right? But even, I know that your father will help you if you just ask, right? So again, he turned her testiness into a testimony. And this is the part I love the most, right? Because he did not try to change Martha. So when they get to the tomb and he is ready to tell Lazarus to come forth, what does Martha say? Y'all know the story. Martha said, but Lord, it's going to stink. Don't you just love it? He could have called her out and say, look, Martha, yeah, if I'm gonna do this, you don't have time to be worried about it stinking or not, right? Your brother is gonna be alive. But I just love it that he does not call her out. He leaves her with that testimony that that he is Lord, and that he has moved her from annoyed to overjoyed. So again, Jesus is the real star of this story. And in order for you to move from annoyed to overjoyed, you have to recognize that Jesus will act as your true friend. You also have to, he gives you permission to spend time with him, and that helps with your feeling annoyed. And then finally, he can turn your testiness into a testimony of faith. And finally, you can be overjoyed, meaning you can be extremely happy, ecstatic, thrilled, and delighted. All right, so that is the basis of that conversation I had tonight. So now you know how you can move from annoyed to overjoyed.